Ladies and gentlemen of the crypto space, we're so back. I'm not sure if you guys have seen it just quite yet, but Bitcoin just got back to $62,000 after going as low as what? 56K, something like that. And I don't have to keep bragging about where we bought. Again, not too much for the bragging and boasting, but I'll tell you one thing though. If you are not preparing for things to get way worse in the traditional markets, then oh boy, do I have a surprise for you. Just take a look at this article right here. Report reveals hundreds of US banks are at risk of failure amid a high interest rate environment. At the end of the day, the reason, or at least one of the main reasons we are so excited about cryptocurrencies and why I'm always able to buy the dip and why I'm always happy to take these opportunities at these lower levels, with right now that trade being in roughly, let's see here, 129.65% profit. Because once more, yes, Bitcoin can fall, but as I described in the trading channel, we either go 59, 60K, or perhaps things get way worse. We go all the way towards 50, but that's basically the worst that I could ever see happening, at least for the foreseeable future. And that's basically where all the risk lies, that there's going to be a full capitulation event. Things will just keep on dumping into oblivion, but I see the chance of that happening rather small when you take a look at the macro and realize cryptos, they do make a lot of sense, especially in times like this. Now, I will say that it's been a bit shaky on the institutional field. Eric shared earlier, this is the senior ETF analyst over at Bloomberg. New high water, more Bitcoin ETF holders just rolled in. Yongrong Asset Management based in Hong Kong bought $38 million worth of the BlackRock Bitcoin Spot ETF, which makes up 12% of its reported holdings. Interesting given Hong Kong has its own ETFs now, but US ETFs have that irresistible combo of low fees and high volume. Yongrong's top 4 holdings are NVIDIA, Meta, Tesla, and now Bitcoin, aka the LFG portfolio. Indeed, it's quite nice. While Yongrong has highest single ETF inflows, I think it's inflows, could also be inventory, not sure, at 30 million of IBIT. There's another because inflows is with an F, right? Maybe inventory. At 30 million of IBIT, there's another HK firm called Avada that holds 4 of its spot Bitcoin ETFs with a total value of $74 million, making it the biggest total allocator to date. It went full Degen 2 as 4 out of the 5 biggest holdings are Bitcoin ETFs. And James Seyfert came in to say, wondered if you just found the firm that caused IBIT's outflow. Maybe they did move the assets from IBIT to a Hong Kong ETF. Potential gains taxes make it strange if true though, or potential gains taxes make this strange. So I'm thinking they have a theory where the outflows that we've seen from BlackRock recently are basically offset by the fact that it's Hong Kong that's buying, and because it could be a Hong Kong firm that's exiting the US markets now and moving over to the Hong Kong side. Because again, when you keep reading the articles, Hong Kong-based asset managers reportedly buying $112 million worth of US-based spot Bitcoin ETFs. Perhaps there are bigger strategies to this though that we don't fully understand. I'm gonna presume that to be the case because these ETFs, they're a bigger game. It's not a small retail game. This is the massive institutional game. These guys are not making small moves. They're making multi-$100 million moves. This is calculated. This is not a joke. Which brings me to another point of the video. I gotta warn you guys about some things that are happening in crypto, unfortunately, nearly all the time. Specifically this. An investor loses $68 million in a crypto scam. Now, before we move on, I want to quickly talk about our partner for today's video that is called ICB Network, which stands for Ideal Corporation Blockchain. And it's basically a new layer 1 that uses proof of stake with the goal to fix a lot of problems that current layer 1s have, such as the scalability, affordability, and obviously speed. While interestingly enough, also staying very environmentally friendly. Now, specifically, they use some some ERC-721 technology. So yes, they are EVM compatible, meaning you can basically have it on easier wallets. If they were not, it's always kind of difficult because you have to download a separate wallet. Bridging is a lot more annoying, sometimes at least. It's just a lot more cumbersome if they're not. And anyway, they just launched their mainnet a few days ago. But anyway, you get it. It's a layer 1 that's trying to get a lot of adoption because they claim to do what other chains are doing better. And ultimately, it's a very, very big battle, but they claim that their proof of stake has a big advantage over the competition. Matter of fact, they've got a whole huge overview here between the differences, or of the differences between ICB POS, which stands for proof of stake, proof of work, traditional proof of stake, and BFT. Basically explaining why the way that they are doing it is significantly better than how most other projects are doing it in the departments of transaction speed, energy efficiency, decentralization, security, governance, cost of entry, scalability, distribution of rewards, and vulnerability to attacks. I'd say the roadmap is not that advanced, not too many things on the board, but perhaps it's actually a good thing because it means you can easily get to your targets. And I guess they're pretty big ones as they want exchange listings this quarter and a lot of interesting new stuff like a DAO in the next quarter. So pretty interesting stuff. It leads me to more interesting stuff that's going on in crypto right now. Like for example, like I said earlier in the video, the fact that some people are losing tens of millions of dollars with just one single misclick. Well, it's not as simple, but it's also not really too difficult. So the reason I am specifically addressing it in this video is because as more institutions roll on in, there's going to be more, I'd say, risk preventing measures, or I should say like hack or spam, whatever preventing measures. However, right now we're in that middle ground where there's so much more money coming in, but the prevention and the education on all the prevention is not as high. And I'd say with people trying to farm all these airdrops, with people luring around on Twitter, is just getting so extremely out of touch. The amount of scam attempts, spam attempts, etc. So what happened here? For the most part, what you need to know is whenever you send out a transaction, what very often happens is that a spammer / scammer sends another sort of spoof transaction from your wallet. So basically, if you've got an address, let's say, this is an example, right? But let's say this is your address, the bottom one, this is your address. What they often do is that they make another address that basically has the first digits, like this OX1E22, whatever. The first, let's say 6 or whatever will be the same, and the last 6 or 7 or so will be the same. The middle is different because that's very, very hard to copy. But in theory, if they really wanted to, they can make everything the same except for a couple letters in the middle. They just have to put a lot of computational power to get that specific public key. But it's possible, and they do it. Similarly to how you, if you want to, you can get yourself vanity addresses, or what they're called. If you, for example, want the start to be OX1 Blade Runner and then the rest of the text, you can have it, but it might just take a lot of computational power. And where are you going to generate it? Because you'll probably end up losing your wallet by a hacker. From the perspective that if you're going to use a website to generate it, they probably also have your key anyway, besides the point. Now, this specifically, the first time I heard about it, it's what they said. They said, well, this person probably just got phished in the sense that he copied the wrong address to send money to. In other words, let's just see it as it stands right here. Someone lost 1,100 Bitcoin due to a phishing attack. How'd it happen? 6 hours ago, this guy created a new address, which is this one right here, and transferred 0.05 ETH, perhaps just to test whatever. A scammer generated an address with the same starting and ending letters and transferred 0 ETH to him, with just at least a transaction. So the transfer appears in his transaction history. Since many wallets hide the middle part with ... to make the UI look better, when he wanted to transfer a lot of the WBTC to his new address, he mistakenly copied the address generated by the scammer because the two addresses have the same starting and ending letter. So he just copied and so transferred $71 million to the scammer. To show it in real time, this, can you guys see it properly? I think you can, yeah. So this right here is a transaction going from his address on the left, this is his address, out towards something that he himself put in, right? So OXD9 whatever. And he sent 0.05 ETH there. Then slightly afterwards, the person making the screenshot, or perhaps Etherscan itself, has put this as fake phishing. But this is basically, you can see here, OXD9A, OXD9A1, not the C, not even. So it looks quite similar. And when you copy it, or I should say it differently, since this address sent him some money, he might have just quickly copied the last address that he was involved with, and thus ended up getting scammed. And the reason I'm taking so much time to talk about this is because I don't want it to happen to anybody. I know probably 95% of you people will first of all not copy like this and won't be victim to it. But I think if I can take 5 minutes here and hopefully save somebody from making a potentially life-changing mistake, I think it's worth a little bit of time. And again, I'm not the best explaining exactly how this works because everything, in my opinion, is pretty self-explanatory. He made a transaction to an address, somebody made a similar sort of address, sent you some money, but then it still comes to a matter of why would you copy an old transaction address? It's just for convenience sake, just to make things easier. But I personally never made the mistake. Then again, I understand where it comes from. I'll give another example. I'll elaborate even more. So what we could do is copy this address, right? And we can insert it here to actually give it a look. This is Etherscan just to see transactions on there. We can do that. Then specifically, we might want to go to token transfers because obviously, no, we're at the wrong address. This is the one he wanted to send to. We should actually go one step back, go towards the original address. And here we can see he sent 0.05 out. And let's say sometimes he just uses this overview. This fake phishing is some name that somebody gave to it. Before, it just basically looked the same as this address. And so he might have just looked at it and copied it real quick without thinking. And perhaps similarly, it could have been in his wallet. It just showed it simply and it just quickly copied it. Anyway, hopefully you understand by now what I mean. You don't get scammed this way because now you've heard about it and you know that this happens. Because again, you can see here, even though the address was not really too similar, it did happen. And in this case, it's 70 million. The probability of the hackers giving it back is pretty high because very often what you see is when it's such a large number, the consequences are so severe that hackers sometimes don't want to deal with it, or scammers, because it's just too much money. Might sound strange, but the problems that come from stealing 70 million are significantly worse than stealing $100,000, $20,000, $2,000 here and there, because exchanges take this matter very seriously, and so do all the investigators. Whereas with 20,000, they will 99.999% of the time just get off scotch-free because almost nobody's going to come looking for their money that bad. But with 70 million, it's a little bit of a different story. In a similar notion, I actually got scammed a little bit ago. I think I told you guys about it partially, and I don't want to even say the name, but you can read it right there. It's something I invested in a while back, and matter of fact, it's a 𝗕𝗪𝗓. So it's somebody from the Netherlands. So that was kind of a weird one. I didn't expect it to be a 26-year-old kid. But the point being here, the guy stole, let's say, roughly $30 million or so. And the fiat caught him pretty quickly. They apprehended him, I think, today, maybe a little bit ago already. Which is, again, a matter of, if he were to, again, I don't want to be the advocate for it, but I will say, if he was to steal like $100,000 or something, probably nothing would happen. But the fact that he stole, I think, like 30 million made the eyes on him so severe, where I'm personally thinking, this guy was already so successful, why steal money? Why do that? What's the point in all this? Again, this is not their first project. They had multiple, which were pretty successful, and this one could have been really successful too. I don't understand why he would do that. That's the first point. And second of all, it's proving my point of, these guys that are taking a lot, they get caught a lot more, which is good. Sometimes it's a little bit too late, like with FTX, but they get caught. And so from that perspective, we often joke about guys at the SEC, guys at the FBI, with them being really slow in the crypto space. But this guy, this 26 million guy or 26-year-old guy, he got, he scammed us like 2 weeks ago or something, and he's already caught. So that's, I'd say, pretty nice. Anyway, just wanted to share some thoughts on the scams and the current situation with the pump. Things are nice. Partially maybe because of ETFs, partially because it was too dippy of a dip. Once more, we can dip even further. Even 52,000, 50,000 is not out of the question, but hopefully at least now you guys understand why I'm always saying just keep on buying your way down lower. Don't fear it too much. I'm not sure if the price is, I was like, what? Here we go. We've actually already pumped even more. We're above 62,000. Don't fear too much. Just keep buying down lower, because the worst case, you're going to be stuck with your positions for a little while. But best case, you catch those crazy bounces, and that's massive profits. That's about it.